Hello, this is my first ever fascinating YouTube production. I'm doing a video of a painting that I did recently of this picture that I also took fairly recently. It's a photo from just a bushwalk up in the hills of where I currently am, which is southern Germany in the Baden-Württemberg area. I take a lot of these sort of photos, usually with the intention of like creating a drawing or a painting out of them. I don't really end up properly making many of my art ideas, but this one I did, basically so that I could create a video out of it and just make a beginning with some YouTube creations, I suppose. So it's a creation for a creation. Yeah. And I thought I might just give a few words of advice of anyone who's interested in, I guess, sort of landscape painting is what I tend to do a lot of. Some figurative painting as well. I studied many years ago fine art and did get some good advice back then, which always resonated with me, which was just to stay loose and allow yourself to allow for the possibility of mistakes when you're working. Don't be precious about the outcome. Just allow the outcome to sort of happen. The way they trained that into us was by doing lots of life drawing and just sort of making us be uncomfortable with the way that we were drawing, like with our eyes closed and with the wrong hand and with really quick time limits. And then they'd tell us to draw, and we'd draw for a while, and they'd tell us just to like draw over that drawing, like kind of destroy that drawing with another drawing. And yeah, that sort of mentality is great when you're when you're trying to be creative, I suppose. To be creative, you must be destructive. So yeah, you need to be able to destroy what you're making, or have the willingness to sort of destroy what you think you're making, so that you can kind of allow for new things. So when I do my landscapes, I tend to like start with a big sky, like a blended sort of sky. Just as a way of beginning. And I guess the sky is always the thing right at the back, so when you're layering up, it makes sense to do the sky first. I'll often just squeeze paint straight onto the board and mix it on the board, particularly with the sky, and then just blend with a bit of water and just get that sort of that gradient, that color gradient that sort of comes lighter as it gets towards the horizon. And this is like a very blue sky, but I'll often do kind of strange colors like pink and purples and things like that, just because I like the drama, bit of sky drama. And then just sort of roughing in the mountains and whatever the hell that is. I think it's actually just like the town as seen from sort of up on a hill, and that blue area down the bottom is sort of like the shadow that the hill is casting. So yeah, just sort of looking into the photo, which was on the sort of displayed on the laptop, sort of when I'm working there, looking into the photo and then trying to see the colors. Yeah, just trying to sort of like determine the colors, and the thing is, if you get the color wrong, you paint it on there and it doesn't look quite right, and then you just add a bit more red or a bit more blue or whatever the color is, and you can just sort of like mix the color on the board in the place, and if it goes wrong, you can just add a bit more color. Is the way I tend to do it. So you don't need to worry too much. Yeah, and just sort of look for the forms. That was another thing I remember learning back when I was actually studying about painting, was that there's not really lines in real life. I guess there is lines, but you can't paint with lines. You've got to paint with blocks of color and tones. So yeah, you just sort of add blobs, add some blobs of color, and don't worry if those colors are not spot on to begin with. You can always kind of keep adding white. White's really good for sort of blurring and fading and deleting, I suppose. If something doesn't look quite right at the time, you can sort of just white it out and then have another go. And yeah. And so here I'm starting to add the trees. I guess this kind of would be one of the harder things to do. This is like literally the moment where you are kind of destroying your painting if you kind of get, not destroying it, but I am taking that chance of destroying it if I do something wrong with the trees. But it's a good feeling, just painting a line straight across what you've spent a bit of time already creating. Just setting your spirit free here with some trees. I do love painting trees as well, or branches. I do find them difficult. So just lots of black lines really, and then I'll also work in some pencil. In this one I've just used a plain grey lead. I guess it probably should have been more like a black leaded pencil or a 6B or something like that. But yeah, I was just kind of, like I said, this painting is more just to give me something to bang on about in my millennial core video, as my daughter informed me. So yeah, I'm a millennial and this is my video. Where was I? Talking about trees. Yeah, so pencil can just be worked back through the paint, and I quite like drawing through wet paint. I like the way it sort of like moves the paint around and kind of gives you these sort of like light and dark sort of lines, like lines that have both light and dark in them, and usually kind of like a scratch through the middle where the lead has been. But yeah, I'll sort of often draw through two tones of paint, and it's a really good way of actually doing drawing with paint. You can sort of like draw back through wet paint and use your finger to then blend and smudge and blur, and it'll kind of, yeah, it just gives nice texture and interesting sort of whatever outcomes, I guess. Yeah, so you'll see that I am using a pencil from time to time here. It's half paintbrush, half pencil, I guess. And then also at some point I'll kind of be adding in some highlight colors into the trees. Just to kind of add some contrast. And I guess the outcome doesn't look exactly like the photo. It's not really supposed to. The photo is sort of like my jumping off point. And yeah, I don't worry too much about. Sometimes I get pretty uptight about trying to get a likeness, but for landscapes particularly, like I just sort of use it as inspiration and use it as the starting point, I guess. And so starting points is what this video is supposed to be. This is just a way to begin creating content on YouTube. Do I have anything to offer? Time will tell. Most of the people on YouTube just say begin, stay consistent, and things will follow. I'm not sure if that'll work, but I'll just give it a crack and send it, see what happens. And I've got plenty of problems, like everybody. And they say problems are the beginnings of all stories. So yeah, I got problems, and see if I can turn them into some stories that resonate with other people. There's always someone who's sharing what you're going through, so I think that's how you create things that people like. They sort of are struggling with similar stories. Problems become stories. Stories swirl around in your head, and hopefully they turn into something valuable to other people. Kind of like the same as pictures in art. A lot of great art is produced through things that people are struggling with, like struggling to understand, struggling to forget, and or struggling to remember, which is what I'm trying to do. Always struggling to remember. So anyway, this is probably approaching the end of what I got to say here. So if you've enjoyed any of this at all, like and subscribe and ask me a question down below. See what happens. All right. Ciao.